There are things the heart knows long before the mouth dares to speak them. Sometimes what is not said carries the weight of 1,000 truths, resting between gestures, glances, and moments of stillness. You might wonder if he loves you, but ask yourself this instead: what does he do when no one is watching? In this quiet space, where words retreat and actions bloom, love leaves its truest trace. Stay with me until the final breath of this journey, and you may uncover not only what love looks like, but how to recognize it when it no longer wears the mask of words. And perhaps, more importantly, you'll begin to see what love does when it feels safe enough to stop performing. There is a language more ancient than words, spoken not with tongues, but with presence. In this language, love does not rush forward dressed in proclamations, nor does it echo with the thunder of demands. Instead, it arrives like mist over a still lake, soft and silent, revealing everything to those who know how to see. When a man is already in love, he does not always speak it. But if the heart is quiet enough, it begins to notice what the mind often overlooks. And the first truth is this: he creates safe space through his presence. As presence is not merely being physically nearby. It is the offering of undivided awareness. In a world of endless noise, this is perhaps the rarest gift. When someone brings you their full attention, when they place their thoughts, their worries, and their distractions to the side, they are saying, "This moment with you is sacred." He may not declare love with trembling words, but you will feel it when he listens to you, not to fix you, but to truly hear. He will not interrupt your silence with his solutions. He will rest beside you, offering no pressure to be anything more than what you are in that moment. Such presence is like a garden wall shielding fragile flowers from harsh winds. Within that space, the soul feels it can breathe. There is no judgment, no expectation, no haste to turn vulnerability into performance. There is only calm witness. And where we feel safe to unfold, love grows not with drama, but with depth. There is an old Zen tale about a young monk who approached his master and said, "Master, how do I know if I am truly loved?" The master motioned for the boy to follow and led him to a bamboo grove. They sat in silence for some time, listening to the wind weave its way through the stalks. Finally, the master spoke. "Do you hear the wind?" "Yes," said the boy. "And do the bamboo complain when the wind bends them?" "No, master." "Then know this: love is like the wind in the bamboo. It does not force. It moves around you, with you, and sometimes through you. But it does not break what it loves. It lets it sway. So it is with a man in love who gives you space and quiet. He doesn't need to possess or perform. He listens not just with his ears, but with the soft awareness of his entire being. He allows you to be without pushing you to become. The bamboo, you bend, never break. In daily life, this might look like something simple. The way he remembers you prefer tea in the evening instead of coffee and makes it without needing to ask. Or how he senses your weariness and chooses not to speak, but simply sits beside you. He does not rush to fill the silence. He holds it. One might hold a bird, gently, without pressure. You might be speaking about something small, the rain, the day's routine. But his gaze does not wander to his phone. His mind does not drift. In his quiet, you feel seen. This is presence. Presence, sustained through time and intention, becomes sanctuary. As the Chinese philosopher Zhuangzi once wrote, "Perfect man uses his mind like a mirror. It grasps nothing, it refuses nothing, it receives but does not keep." In this way, love without words becomes a mirror, reflecting your truest self, unmarred by desire to alter it. And when you are held in that kind of space, your soul breathes a little easier, your heart stops defending itself. You begin to rest, and in that rest, trust is born. From here, journey deepens. For the second truth appears quietly, like footsteps on soft earth. A man in love offers without expectation. True love does not trade. It gives because giving becomes as natural as breathing. When he is in love, he finds joy in offering, not because he wishes to earn your affection, because your happiness resonates within him like music. He may not say, "I love you," but he will notice the way your shoulders slump when you're tired. He'll quietly move the chair for you, carry the bag, prepare the little things that ease your day. He won't make a ceremony of it. He simply does. This is not the giving of martyrdom, nor is it the transaction of one seeking reward. It is the giving of one whose cup overflows, quietly, naturally, without calculation. There is a story from the Shaolin tradition about a hermit monk who lived high in the mountains. He was known to give away anything that was asked of him: food, clothing, even shelter. One day a traveler came and asked, "Why do you give so freely? Do you not worry about having nothing left?" The monk smiled and said, "When the mountain gives snow, it does not count the flakes. When the sun gives warmth, it does not wait for thanks. I give because giving is what I become when I no longer think of myself as separate." This is the essence of love's quiet generosity, not performative, not strategic, but rooted in unity, when another's well-being is no longer separate from your own. In nature, you see this in the river that feeds the trees along its banks. It never demands the trees grow in a certain way. It flows, it nourishes, it sustains, simply because that is what a river does. Likewise, a man in love becomes generous in spirit. He might drive across town in the rain just to hand you something forgotten. He might rearrange his day so that you do not walk alone. Not to be thanked, not to be admired, but because it feels more painful to let you struggle than to change his own plans. It is here we meet the deeper truth. When a man offers freely, he reveals not just his affection, but his humility. Love has already softened the armor of self-interest. He does not hold score, he holds intention. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "He who is noble plans only for the good of others, not because he must, because it is his joy." This nobility of heart is love without show, without banner, without parade. You might overlook it if your eyes are trained only on words. But if your spirit is quiet, you will see it in every small act. These acts accumulate like gentle snow, imperceptible at first, but over time, they form a landscape of trust. You begin to realize he is there not to impress, but to support. He walks beside you, not ahead to lead, nor behind to chase. He simply remains steady, observant, present. If the first offering of love is space to be, then the second is effort without agenda. And together, create a kind of peace where the mind stops questioning and the heart begins to rest. So do not ask too soon if he loves you. Watch instead how he holds space for you to exist. Observe how he gives without needing return. These are the signs of a man whose heart has already chosen long before his mouth dares to speak. We are not always trained to see love this way. The world teaches us to value declarations, speed, and spectacle. But the soul is quiet. It recognizes love not in the volume of speech, but in the depth of presence. So slow down, feel the current beneath the stillness, and perhaps you'll find that the answer you seek has already been unfolding. In gestures, in silence, in the way he simply is when he is with you. Breathe, listen, and trust the space between words. That is where love begins its quiet work. There is a quiet strength that arises in the heart when it begins to love, not as a fleeting feeling, but as a discipline. A sacred commitment, not to control another, but to support their becoming. When a man is truly in love, his efforts become deliberate, his attention unwavering, and his steps more thoughtful. he begins to invest effort, even when there is no applause, no certainty, and no guarantee. Love, in its truest form, is not a contract but a cultivation. Just as a farmer tends to the soil long before the harvest appears, a man in love offers his time, his energy, and his presence without demanding a specific outcome. He plants with patience, waters with presence, and trusts the seasons, not because he is owed anything, but because tending has become his way. This effort is not frantic or desperate. It is quiet, consistent, and grounded. You may notice it in the way he learns the rhythms of your world, how he adjusts his words when he sees they cause you pain, or how he asks about the small things in your life simply to understand the world you inhabit. In the teachings of the old masters, there is a parable often shared around temple fires. A young disciple once asked his teacher, "How do I know if my practice is sincere? Even when no one sees me meditate, even when I feel no change." The master picked up a single grain of rice and placed it on a stone. Then, each day he added one more grain. Weeks passed. The disciple grew restless. "Master, what are you doing?" The teacher replied, "This is how sincerity works. No single grain changes the stone, but over time the stone will remember. So it is with love. Each quiet act, each small kindness, each effort made even when unnoticed, they gather, not as noise, but as truth, not as display, but as depth. A man in love keeps showing up, not because he is praised, but because loving has become part of who he is. You may see this in daily life. He notices the way your eyes grow tired after too many hours at work, and without fanfare, he takes tasks off your plate. Or when you are sick, he doesn't just ask if you're all right. He prepares soup, adjusts the pillows, and lets you rest without question. Not to be seen, not to be thanked, but because in your wellness he finds his peace. This kind of love does not thrive on being easy. It thrives on being present. It meets the everyday with reverence. In the Taoist tradition it is said, "The wise man does nothing, yet nothing is left undone." This may seem like a contradiction, but in love it reveals something profound. A man in love does not seek to be noticed for his effort. His doing arises from being, from alignment with what is meaningful and true. This is not about perfection. He will stumble, he will forget, but effort returns like a tide, steady, rhythmic, faithful. In nature, we see this too. The tree does not demand fruit from its own branches. It grows, reaches, offers. Sometimes in harsh weather, sometimes in drought, yet still it extends itself season after season, because giving is what it knows. Likewise, a man in love does not love for reward. He loves because it aligns him with his own deepest self, and even if his effort is not immediately returned, it is not wasted. Love, like water poured onto dry earth, finds its way, and the earth remembers. This brings us into the fourth truth. Consistency without demand reflects devotion without ego. Our aid, there is a deep calm that settles into a relationship when one feels the other will remain. Not just in joy, but in discomfort, in stillness, in storm. A man in love does not disappear when things grow silent, nor does he withdraw when love is no longer effortless. He stays, he adapts, he continues. Consistency is not a performance. It is the result of inner alignment when the outer actions match the inner truth. In love, this becomes an unwavering presence that does not chase or retreat, but rather remains. There is a story of an old calligrapher who each morning would write a single word with ink and brush. Decades passed and the ink on the scrolls grew faded. One day, a student asked, "Why do you continue? Master, no one sees these, they will disappear." The old man smiled and said, "Because the brush still remembers my hand, and my hand still honors the word. This is the essence of loving without demand. A man in love continues to be present even when the world offers no applause, when days are mundane, when disagreements arise. Not love for reaction. He loves because the act itself shapes him. His heart remembers the truth even when the moment does not reflect it. In real life, this consistency may be seen in the way he shows up during arguments. Not to win, but to understand. How he responds to tension with patience instead of punishment. How he chooses to come back again and again. Even after moments of frustration or fatigue, he does not withhold affection to gain control. He does not punish with distance. Instead, he offers a steady presence that says, even when it is difficult, I will not vanish. And yet, this devotion does not come from neediness or fear. It is rooted in dignity, in a love that is calm, sovereign, and whole. In Buddhist teachings, there is a phrase: if steady mind, like the still surface of a lake, reflects the truth of the sky. In the same way, a man who loves with consistency becomes a mirror, his calm reflecting not perfection but commitment, not possession but presence. This is where devotion lives, not in grand declarations, but in repeated acts of care. Not in the height of emotion, but in the quiet moments when no one is looking. Even nature teaches us this. The moon returns each night, though it is never praised. The sun rises daily, even when hidden behind clouds. Their cycles are not driven by demand, but by rhythm. And rhythm, over time, becomes trust. When love becomes rhythm, it becomes sanctuary. A man who loves with consistency does not use his presence as currency. He does not withdraw to provoke, nor return to manipulate. He remains because love to him is not a strategy. It is a path he has chosen not with haste, but with clarity. He may not always say the right thing. He may falter. But even in his imperfection, he is there, learning, returning, growing. His constancy is not flawless, but it is sincere. This is not the kind of love that burns brightly and fades. This is the kind of love that warms the bones in winter. The kind that stays when storms rise, not because it must, but because it wants to. And so, as we journey through these truths, let the heart remember effort reveals sincerity, and consistency reveals devotion. In a world that teaches us to value intensity, it takes wisdom to recognize endurance. It takes stillness to notice effort made without expectation. It takes clarity to trust love that does not demand, simply offers, again and again, like breath, like rain, like prayer. When you see a man continue to love in small ways, even when there is no audience, no promise, no certainty, know this: you are witnessing the kind of love that is not ruled by ego, guided by spirit. And such love, though it does not always speak, always remains. When love matures beyond longing, it begins to resemble something quieter than desire, something deeper than passion. It begins to resemble discipline. A man who has already given his heart does not always voice it in romantic gestures or eloquent lines. Instead, his love reveals itself in how he aligns his choices, even in solitude. Love becomes less about grasping and more about protecting, not in the sense of defending against an external threat, but in the way one protects a fire from wind, cupping the flame so that it may continue to burn softly and without fear. True love is an inward practice, a silent discipline of care. In the old teachings of the mountain temples, a student once asked a master, "What is the most powerful form of protection?" The master did not answer at first. He took the student to a cliffside where wildflowers clung to the edge. A storm had just passed, and the wind was still sharp. "Look," the master said, pointing to a small stone carefully wedged above one of the more fragile flowers. That stone did nothing to hold the flower. It only shielded it from the harshest gusts. Then he turned to the student and said, "Protection does not overpower, shelters without disturbing the bloom. So Two is the love of a man who has made you a part of his inner world. He does not seek to own you or possess your light, but he shields it without being asked, without announcing it. He steps between you and life's sharp edges, not to control your path, but to make it less burdened where he can. This may be as subtle as reminding you to eat when your days are too heavy or walking you to your car even when you say you're fine. It is not about suspicion or insecurity. It is about quiet awareness, a reflexive urge to ensure you are safe, seen, and steady. Love, when practiced like discipline, appears in how a man restrains his own impulses, controls his frustrations, tempers his words, not to suppress who he is, but to honor what the relationship means. He becomes like the martial artist who holds back his strength not because he is weak, because he has found something more worthy than proving power of peace. In the writings of the Japanese poet Bash, it is said, "Do not seek to follow in the footsteps of the wise. Seek what they sought." The wise did not chase status nor demand proof of loyalty. They sought harmony, and a man in love who is inwardly disciplined no longer acts to impress. He acts to preserve harmony. This is his way of loving. Discipline in love also means being present when the easier option is to escape. It is choosing to have difficult conversations gently. It is staying awake during your suffering, even when he cannot fix it. It is listening with patience, not because he agrees, but because he respects the sanctity of your voice. Same discipline shows itself in nature. Consider the eagle. It soars high not by flapping constantly, by knowing to open its wings, when to ride the currents. Its power lies in restraint, in wisdom, not just in speed. So too, a man in love learns to read the currents of your moods, your silences, your needs. He acts not impulsively, but intentionally. Not loudly, but effectively. In ordinary life, you might see this when a man changes his habits, not to lose himself, but to become more spacious for you. He may work harder not to impress you, but to create a life where peace and provision are possible. He may distance himself from things that once distracted him, not out of obligation, but because clarity now lives in the stillness where your presence resides. And yet, none of this is forced. The discipline does not feel like sacrifice. It feels like alignment. It is in the soft discipline of showing up without demand, protecting without pride, and staying present without pressure that love becomes a kind of sacred practice. Now the final truth unfolds like the last light of day, not bright, but golden, reflective, whole. A man in love does not always announce that he has found peace, but if you watch closely, you will see that his energy calms around you because his storm has already found its shore. There is a moment, subtle and often unspoken, where love stops being pursuit and begins to be presence. It is when the restless winds within him soften and he no longer feels the need to chase, prove, or perform. Your presence, in its very nature, becomes enough. He may still face the outer world with armor, assertive, focused, even fierce. But when he is with you, there is a shedding. The shoulders drop, the voice softens, the gaze lingers, not out of lust or infatuation, but out of settling, as rivers settle in the arms of the sea. There is a tale told in temples of a warrior who wandered for years in search of a sacred bell rumored to quiet any mind that heard it. Many warned him it was only legend, but he climbed every peak, crossed every desert, endured every test. One evening, weary and alone, he stumbled into a valley and collapsed under a tree. There was no bell, no sound, only the rhythm of his breath, the whisper of leaves, the distant call of birds. And for the first time in years, he felt no need to move. That night he dreamed of an old monk who whispered, "The bell is not a sound, but a state. When a man is truly at peace in your presence, it is not because you entertain him or dazzle him. It is because he has ceased needing to search. His heart, once scattered like leaves in the wind, begins to gather. And you unknowingly become the temple where he lays down his sword. This inner calm may not always be dramatic. It often looks like the way he lets you speak without hurrying you, the way his laughter with you is unguarded, the way he rests his head near yours, seeking answers but simply being. In the natural world, this is the lake at dawn, still, reflective, mysterious, not because it tries to be so, but because it is undisturbed. The ancient philosopher Chuang-Tzu wrote, "Happiness is the absence of the striving for happiness." So it is in love, when a man no longer strives, performs, or proves, when his breath deepens around you, when his silence becomes tender rather than distant. That is when love has truly arrived. Does not mean he loses all fire, but the fire no longer rages, it warms, it sustains. It gathers you both in quiet certainty. In everyday life, this may be witnessed in small, powerful ways. He may not rush to reply to every message with urgency, but his replies always carry presence. He may not plan extravagant events, but when you are with him, you feel held. Not physically, always energetically. And when you cry, he doesn't panic. He listens. He holds the space. Because the man who once ran from emotional weight has now chosen to remain in the sacred gravity of love. This is not because of weakness. It is the opposite. Only those who have tamed their inner storms can be this still, this strong. So as you look for signs of love, do not be fooled by noise. Watch for the man who becomes quieter around you, not with withdrawal, but with peace. Watch how his breath slows, how his movements become mindful, how his being begins to root itself near yours. For this is the final sign, when his restlessness dissolves and you feel that he is not just present, but arrived, you will know he doesn't say it, but in your presence he is home, and there is no deeper love than that. So many search for love in grand declarations, in fireworks and shouting stars. But the truth is gentler, subtler, far more enduring. When a man loves you, he becomes like water. He softens around you. He flows toward you. He shapes himself not to impress, but to embrace. He does not chase. He returns, not with haste, but with devotion. If you recognize these signs, pause. Do not rush to name it. Let it be. Because the most powerful love often whispers, while the world teaches us to only trust the loudest voice. Watch this again when you begin to doubt. Not just to hear, but to remember. Love, when true, is less of a question and more of an answer already unfolding in stillness. Let your mind be quiet. Let your heart listen. He doesn't say it. But if you look closely, he already does.